particular bike happens to be a 24-inch, but these instructions will work for 26-inch as well. They are the same bike, just a little bit different size. I just want to give you a word of encouragement that you can do this. Don't let the bicycle get the better of you. However, if it does get the upper hand, please give us a call. We're here 8 to 5 on weekdays with full mechanical support and other agents who can help you out with anything that you need help with. You can email us at theteam@sixthreezero.com. Give us a call, 310-982-2877, and we're super happy to help, and we pick up the phone really fast, and we have a wide array of ways to help you get your bike together. We can get outside professional help. You can talk to one of our mechanics who can guide you through things. If you had shipping damage or something like that, we're happy to send out parts. So please take advantage of the team here. We're going to go ahead and start by cutting the straps with a knife. We're going to build the bike with the tools that are provided inside the box, although I highly recommend that you use your own tools from a hardware store or borrow some from a friend. The tools that we send will definitely be good enough to get the bike assembled, but it'll be easier on you if you're using more actual tools from a hardware store. So let's go ahead and open the box. And this is the around the block 3-speed. I've built so many of these, I feel like I've been around the block a time or two. There's the bike, and then inside the bike box are a few more items. Just so you know, the boxes are numbered, and box number 1 is the original bike box. Sometimes that's a little confusing, but that's box number 1. Box number 3 has your pedals and a couple other items. We have the rear rack. And one more box, box 2, which has assembly instructions and also the tools. So I'm going to go ahead and use my knife here, cut open the box number 2 with the instructions and the tools. So here are my tools. We have a very basic or rudimentary multi-tool, which has a number of slotted openings for wrench sizes, like this. And then we also have Allen wrenches, 4mm, 5mm, 6mm. The 5mm and 6mm Allen wrenches also have Phillips head screwdrivers on the other end of them. So this is all you'll need to get this bike together. We also have instruction manual, experience booklet, as well as registration card. Please register your bike so that we can help you quickly and efficiently if you do run into any troubles at all. And let's get to it. Next step in the process is we're going to cut off the zip ties. There are quite a few zip ties on here. I almost always miss a few, so we'll cut a couple more if we run across them, if we missed any later on. Let's go ahead and snap off all of those zip ties that we find throughout the bike. It's like a little treasure hunt. Whoever finds the most zip ties the fastest can go around the block first. All right, here we go. This one here attached to the seat stay. Don't miss it. It has packaging around it. This is the seat post, okay? This is the seat post. We'll set that to the side. We have a little trick about that one that I need to let you know about. And protector for the 3-speed shifter. Down here at the bottom is a triangular box. This is box number 4. Just so you don't miss it, this is actually your seat or saddle. We call it a seat here at 630, even though it's traditionally called a saddle in the cycling world. But it's not the 19th century anymore, so we call it a seat. Alrighty. Got one more here to unhook the handlebars. I'll fold the knife, put that in my pocket in case we miss some more. The front wheel can be removed now. This is the front wheel. Go ahead and take off the cardboard packaging. And on either sides of the axle are pieces of circular plastic packaging. Pull those plastic pieces off and discard. Just pull them off straight. Sometimes we've had customers who rotate those off, and then actually the axle nuts that are already pre-installed on the axle will come off with the packaging, and we've had some customers miss them that way, and then later find it in the packaging. But just pull them straight off, and then that way the axle nuts will stay on your front wheel. Set the front wheel aside. What we're going to do is turn the fork here 180 degrees forward. For packaging purposes, the fork is packed backwards from where it will be once it's assembled. So we'll go ahead and rotate it. In this, from the top, we're going to rotate it clockwise. Okay, clockwise. And then at the bottom of the fork is the fork protector. It's about a 5-inch long piece of black plastic that is used to make sure that the fork doesn't poke through the bottom of the box. Go ahead and discard as well. At this point, I'm going to go ahead and remove all of the foam packaging. You may like to keep the foam packaging on, certainly in a bike shop when they assemble bikes. Typically a mechanic who's assembling the bicycle will actually keep the foam on during the assembly process, just in case a wrench slips or something else happens that could scratch the bike. Because you are working closely with the bike, it can happen. So just an extra precaution, a lot of people will leave the packaging on. For illustration purposes, it's better if I go ahead and remove as much of the clutter and packaging as I can so that you can see what I'm doing. On the other side of the rear wheel is another circular piece of black plastic. Sometimes that's thought to be part of the bike. It's not. That's just packaging as well. You can go ahead and toss that. So you can see the bike is standing by itself nicely, and we have the fork facing the correct way, which means that the fork arms are pointing out towards the front. They're slipping out towards the front. That will make it so that your foot doesn't hit the wheel when you're riding your bike. And now, just to go ahead and get the handlebars out of the way, find out how they are situated, and then move them in such a way that the cables all come out towards the front of the bicycle. We'll take the packaging off of the stem. I want to show you something very important. At the bottom of the stem, there's a piece of packaging, a small piece of black plastic, a cylinder that fits over the end of the stem. This needs to be removed for the assembly to proceed properly. You can't get the stem in there with that piece of black packaging on it, so pull that off, the little black cylinder, and discard as well. And then, just to hold it in place, we're going to just slip the stem into the bike, just so that it'll be out of our way. But we're not going to tighten it or anything like that yet. Okay? And one extra point here, actually, is that this cable here will be over on the left side, so that I'll show you how it configures. A little bit of a puzzle here. So you want the brake cable coming around the other side. So this is going to go from the brake on the right-hand side, the shifter on the right-hand side, over to the left-hand side of the bike like this. It's going to cross over. So when you position the handlebars, that's what you want to see. Okay. Now let's go ahead and install the front wheel. Like I said, the front wheel already has pre-installed axle nuts as well as some safety washers. And before we install the front wheel, I need to show you a little trick. The brakes are already attached and ready to go. However, what you'll find is the brake pads, when the closed position, are too close to allow that tire through. That's a 2.125-inch balloon tire. It's rather wide. But you can decouple the brakes very easily. This silver elbow piece of metal here is called a noodle. You can grab that with one hand and grab the little tab that it's hooked into, and pull them apart like that, and the brakes will separate. Again, it's about a 1-second operation, and then we can reattach them too. I'll show you how. Grab that tab again, rehook them like that. There they are, they're together. And then undo them as well to allow the tire to slip through. Okay, let's put the tire in, and then we will rest the fork dropouts directly onto the axle. At this point, I like to put the kickstand down. The bike will hold itself. And we'll grab the multi-tool and tighten these axle nuts down with the 15mm opening. If you have a 15mm wrench, go for that. Use that instead of the multi-tool. There we go. I had one of the safety washers mispositioned a little bit. So you'll take the safety washer and you will put the hook part of it into the hole in the dropout, and then hand tighten the axle nut. Same thing with the other safety washer. Safety washers are not entirely necessary in my opinion, unless it's required by law. Then you need to do it. But I can't imagine they really do anything in terms of safety, because the wheel can't drop out if you're not leaving the ground. So make sure that the wheel is centered nicely in the forks. It can be pushed to left or right. That's called floating a wheel, and that's a normal operation with any type bicycle if needed. This one's centering nicely, so I'm just going to go ahead and tighten it down with my 15mm wrench. All right, and then we can go ahead and reattach the brakes. Again, without using any tools, just pulling the brakes together and then sliding the noodle into the tab like that. And I'm going to give these brakes a little squeeze and see how they feel. That's a pretty good tension right there. I like it. Okay, now to make things simple, I like to work from the bottom up so that there's nothing in my way as I work my way up. So the first thing that we'll do at this point is put in the pedals. Please pay attention to the pedals. There's a little note that I need to let you know about that a lot of folks who are new to bicycle assembly do not know about. And kind of counterintuitively, a lot of times the more mechanically inclined you are, the more apt you are to miss this particular detail. So with the pedals, there is a right pedal and a left pedal. They are marked with little stickers, an R and an L. And the point of that is because the right pedal has regular threading, which means right-hand thread. So you thread in the usual way, clockwise. However, the left pedal has reverse threading, so you need to turn it in counterclockwise to tighten it in. So instead of righty-tighty, the left pedal will be lefty-tighty. Okay, let's do the right pedal. And we'll go ahead and put that in with just hand tight as far as we can get it. By the way, the right side of the bike is the side with the chain, because when you're riding the bicycle, it will be your right side there. So get that about as tight as we can, hand tight, and then we'll come back with the 15mm wrench, tighten it up. I'm putting in the left pedal now. Again, going what seems backwards, I'm going lefty-tighty. There we go. Just for the sake of ease, do as far as I can with my hand, and then once it gets a little too tight for my hand, throw that 15mm on there and cinch it on down. For this one, the multi-tool is actually rather nice because sometimes the little wrench area is too narrow for a lot of regular wrenches. It might be too wide to actually fit in there. All right, next step, we're going to put on the seat and the seat post. Again, we're going to save you potential hassle, which is a lot of times people go ahead and put the seat post into the bike first without putting the seat on first, and what can happen is the seat post can slip into the frame and get stuck. It can be extremely hard to get this thing out once it gets inside of the frame. It can go as low really as the bottom bracket there, and getting it back out is difficult. The only solution is to turn the bike upside down and hammer on the bottom of the bottom bracket here, which by the way is where your serial number is. Handy note. A lot of times folks can't get it out and they'll take it to a bike shop. What they'll do at the bike shop is the exact same procedure, but they'll hammer it until it comes out. So let's go ahead and put the seat on first. That way the seat post can't drop in to the frame. You take the narrow end of the seat post and we're going to slide it into the seat assembly clamp. When you put the seat post into the seat assembly clamp, it needs to be seated all the way up against this V-tab here. If it doesn't go all the way, a lot of times the clamping mechanism can't get the grip that it needs because it's only clamping in one spot. So you need to make sure that the seat post is going all the way until it gets stopped by that V-tab. A lot of times customers will keep cranking down on the nuts, but they haven't seated the seat post all the way down, and they can just never get the grip that they need to keep the seat from moving around. So I'm going to move this up a little bit like this. We're going to go ahead and use our wrench. The size of this nut is either 14 or 13 millimeter. It changes from time to time on different models, so I'm never sure which it is. This one looks like a 14 millimeter to me. In a pinch, you can use a 9/16 wrench. If you have it, they're almost like 14 millimeter and 9/16 wrench are almost identically sized. Conveniently. And when you tighten these nuts, you're going to tighten them evenly. So don't just tighten down on one all the way. Tighten one a little bit and then tighten the other a little bit and then go back and forth because you want them to both be fully seated on the threads. If you don't, then one of them will pop off and strip the threads. And then you'll have to call us and we'll send you a new assembly, which we're happy to do, but I know that you want to get riding, so we'll try and prevent that from happening in the first place. Okie doke. I can mention at this point that in a bike shop, standard operating procedure would be to put some grease on the seat post as well as on the threads of the pedals here. I don't consider it a necessary step. It certainly isn't necessary for the functioning of your bike. The real reason why they do it is, especially in my view, for people who are extremely serious cyclists who like to race and all that, they're putting in thousands of miles in the rain and terrible weather, and their bikes in those particular areas can get corroded, and these parts can seize in the bike. It can also happen if you leave your bike out in the weather. If you do want to put grease on these parts, the seat post, the stem, and the threaded part of the pedals, you certainly can. You don't need to do it at this point. You can do it at some other point if you know that you have a neighbor who maybe has some axle grease, if they like to work on their car every now and then. Someone in your neighborhood probably has some grease, or if you want to pick some up, or even have a bike shop do it. But in my view, not necessary and not something you need to worry about at this point. Let's go ahead and install the seat post. I'm going to show you how it's done. On this particular bike, it uses a quick release mechanism. I'm going to yank it off the bike here and show you. It's just a ring of metal that clamps down. It can squeeze like a vise. And then there's a quick release lever that has a cam on it. This has to be positioned in a very precise way, or else it will either malfunction or actually even break. The reason why it can break is sometimes people position the cam in the wrong direction. They over tighten it. That cam has a lot of power in it, a lot of cam power, and it can actually break that bolt. That's how strong it is. So if you do it properly, you're in no danger of that. So what we'll do is you'll have that seat post clamp on the seat tube, just like it was originally, and make sure that the opening of the clamp is lined up with the slot on the seat tube. Then, with our seat safely stuck on the seat post so the seat post cannot go down into the frame, we'll go ahead and slide that down. We will hold the nut on the other side of the quick release mechanism, and we'll begin to turn with the lever open until we start to feel a little bit of resistance, and then we'll attempt to close the lever. The lever always needs to be closed in the forward direction, and then when it's closed, it will line up right along with the body of the seat post clamp. That's the way that you get the proper tension and also make sure that you won't break the part or not get the grip that you need. This was a little bit too easy for me. As you can see, we can still twist the seat post, no problem. So we're going to open the lever again all the way, and we're going to turn that nut a little more. If we need to, you can even turn the cam in the open direction. But then always make sure that it lines up so that when you push it forward, it's going to line up right there nicely with the body of the seat post clamp. Let's get a little bit more. When you close it, you'll feel some resistance, and it will leave an impression on the palm of your hand that will last about 3 to 5, 10 seconds, okay? Now, the seat post is firm, but I need to tighten the seat some more. At this point, if you like, you can level the seat out. Mine is pointing down a little bit. The default setting, or the thumb rule, is that the seat will be level with the ground when you start out. Now, when you start riding, you may find that you like it to be pointed down more, or up more, or it can also be slid back and forth, forward a little bit. So you'll find out after you ride what your preference is. And we're all different, so there's no way to know until you put some miles on your bike a little bit. And also it feels different depending on whether you're standing at a stop or if you're actually riding. So, but there are basically infinite adjustments you can make with the seat here. When you tighten this one down, it does need to be pretty darn tight. So go ahead and give the tightening on those nuts everything you got. So there we go. Again, with a tool, you know, a more proper tool from a hardware store, it makes the job easier, especially if you have a ratcheting socket wrench. Okay, inside the little parts box that had the pedals, you'll find one other part. This is a cosmetic piece. It's called the headset cover. Little ring here. We'll pull the stem back out of the headset, and then go ahead and take that ring and slide it on to the stem. Pull it up about halfway. Put the stem back in there, and then you can slide the cosmetic cover there over the headset hardware. And we'll go ahead and secure the stem in the bicycle by using the 6mm Allen wrench. What we like to do is stand over the wheel. We will line the stem up with it, and then use the 6mm Allen to just go ahead and tighten that puppy down. And go ahead and give this one everything you got. If you have a longer Allen wrench, I would say use that too. This is one of just a couple bolts on a bike that you can really just give it all the strength that you got, because you do not want that to swivel at some point in your ride. So you can sight it again. When you're riding the bicycle, you may feel like the handlebars are a little to the left or the right. Actually, you can always adjust later on according to what you feel is best. The only way to align this up is by eyesight. So, you know, different people will have different opinions as to whether it's, you know, a little to the right or a little to the left. So I wouldn't let it bother you too much. Just, you know, position it in the way that you think is best. But you should be able to get it so close that it's not noticeable either way. Let me take a little bit of this packaging off here. Now you'll notice at this point that the handlebars are pointed straight down. This is not cause for panic. It's merely positioned like this for packaging purposes. We have to get the bike into absolutely the smallest box that we can to make sure that it's an affordable product for you. And so we'll have to rotate the handlebars up. It's a very simple process. Just go ahead and take your 6mm wrench. We're going to loosen this other stem bolt here. I'm going to loosen it, and then we're going to just simply rotate the handlebars up. They can be positioned up or down to your liking. Again, just like the seat, the thumb rule is that we'll start with the grips level to the ground, and then we'll go to the stem bolt here. And with the 6mm tighten down. Again, this is another one of those where you want to go ahead and give it a lot of torque, because you do not want those handlebars to shift mid-ride. On this bicycle, the reflector is already pre-mounted on the handlebars. Different production runs have different reflector configurations. Don't let this alarm you. It doesn't matter where the reflector ends up. I myself think the reflectors are entirely unnecessary, because if all you have is a reflector, you should not be riding at night anyway. However, it is sometimes required by law. You can either mount the reflector on the handlebars or at the top of the fork. It doesn't matter. Sometimes these bikes arrive with the reflectors up here on the handlebars, sometimes here on the fork. And so that's one thing in the instructions may or may not match with your bike. Sometimes it just switches between different production runs, and it just doesn't matter where that thing is positioned. Let me show you how the cables are arranged now. This is the proper cable arrangement. You can see it has a nice gentle swoop from the right to the left. It's crossing across the frame of the bike. That makes it so that it can be turned both ways without impinging on the movement of the cable at all. Same thing with the brake lever cable. Goes all the way from the left side over to the right side, a nice big swoop. Okay, now at this point, the bike is rideable after we inflate the tires. These tires can be inflated to 40 psi. I highly recommend that you pump these all the way up to the full pressure and also check them every week or so and keep them fully inflated. Bike tires of any bike can tend to lose pressure over the course of a week or 2 weeks or a month. You may not even notice it and you'll go out for a ride and not notice that your bike is slow or sluggish. However, if you ride them at about half full and then you pump them up, you'll notice an amazing difference. A bike with underinflated tires will feel quite sluggish and low quality, whereas one with fully inflated tires will be the high quality, smooth, efficient ride that it should be. It makes a huge difference. So we would inflate the tires at this point, and we would also say that this bike is ready to ride at this point. When you take the test ride, you're going to look and check to see if the brakes are adjusted properly and how the shifting is doing, okay? They should be great, however, we'll double check and make sure. So I look to see if the pads are lined up with the rim. In this case, they are. And I'll show you what to do if they aren't. And then also if they're centered so that the wheel is clearing. And then we feel how the tension feels at the lever. Right now it feels very good. The factory's done a fine job here. Now let's see if the wheel spins freely. It does, but I feel a little bit of rubbing there on the left side, okay? So I'm just going to show you how to adjust the pad and also how to center the brake pads in case you want to do a little fine-tuning adjustment. We'll need the 5mm wrench, the 5mm Allen wrench and a Phillips. So if I needed to adjust the pads, which in this case I really don't, but we can fine-tune it a little bit. I'm sorry, it's going to be the 6mm on these brakes. 6mm to loosen the nut for the brake pad. I like to push the arm up against the rim and make sure that the pads are lined up right there with the rim. Nice flush, lined up parallel, and then go ahead and tighten the nut back down. You may notice that the pad wants to turn with the nut, so I always hold the pad firmly with one hand while I'm tightening the nut with the other hand, because it does have enough torque that it can turn the position of the pad. The main thing is that you want to fully contact the rim but not get anywhere close to touching the tire, because it can run through the tire and pop the tube inside if it touches the rubber. One other thing, if the brakes are squealing, sometimes flush brake pads will do that. That's not a bad thing. That actually is very strong braking power, but the noise can be very obnoxious. So if you want, instead of having them parallel, you can toe them in. It's called toe them in, because you make the pads a little bit pigeon-toed, where they point in towards the front of the wheel, and then the back part doesn't hit at all, and then that takes the squeal out of the brakes. There's a million videos on how to do that on YouTube if the concept is hard to understand here. So let me give that a squeeze. Again, when I picked up the front end and spun the wheel, it spins nicely, but I can actually feel it rubbing on the left brake pad. Okay, no problem. At the bottom of each brake arm are two tiny little Phillips screws. These are called centering screws. We're going to go to the side where the pad is rubbing, which is this side, the left side. I'm going to turn that screw inward. Now, it sounds a little counterintuitive, but what's happening is if you tighten that screw in, it pushes on the spring and makes it stronger, so it pulls the pad away. So turning the screw in pulls the pad away, okay? Then we give the lever a few good squeezes, 5 to 10 good squeezes. That'll let everything settle in, and we'll see if our adjustment helped at all. Yes, in fact, it actually is spinning nicely now. I actually overcompensated, and now the right one is rubbing a little bit. That's fine. That just means that I put a few too many turns. I'm going to back this one off. I could either back this one off, the one that I just did, or I could go to this one and do what I had done earlier, tighten this one and have the pad pull away. Either way will work. few squeezes here after that adjustment. Still just a little bit more. It's spinning nicely, but we want perfect, don't we? A little bit more. Oh, and the noise it's making actually are the little, there's little production pieces of rubber hanging out and they're just hitting it. But as you can see, the front wheel is running smoothly, free and clear, without being impeded at all. Great. The rear wheel has a coaster brake, so there's no handbrake. And this is actually the 3-speed hub. So the 3-speed hub should work right off the bat. The 3-speed hub is interesting because you can shift it without pedaling, unlike a conventional derailleur system. So 1, 2, 3, 3, 2, 1, I'm shifting. And then it'll actually execute the shift when you start pedaling, but you can shift whenever you like. Right here, we'll put it in first. The only way you can really tell is by riding the bike, if it's adjusted properly. It certainly should be. Shimano is the foremost manufacturer of bicycle components, and they make some of the finest in the world, and typically end up at the top of the podium in the Tour de France on whatever bike they happen to be on. They're one of maybe 3 component manufacturers that are able to pull off that feat. So you can trust that this Shimano equipment here is outstanding equipment. If for some reason it seems like it's malfunctioning, not working quite right, just let us know. We'll send out new parts, or maybe just needs an adjustment. The adjustment is very simple. I'll show you how to do it. But first, I forgot a part. The rear rack here, let's put that on really fast. And then we will jump to the shifter adjustment. Of course, if you've already gotten ahead of me, you can skip ahead in the video. The hardware that you need to install the rear rack is already on the bicycle. You have 2 4mm bolts, screws actually, and 2 5mm screws. And we'll pull those out of the bicycle, set them to the side. This one feels a little tight, so I'm going to use my Allen there just to get started and pull that one out. And then we will line the holes on the rack up with the fittings on the bicycle itself. And just with anything that gets assembled with multiple fasteners, multiple screws or bolts, you want to just go ahead and get the screws started, but you don't want to tighten them all the way until you get them all started. It really doesn't matter what you're putting together. If you tighten 1 or 2 of the fasteners first before getting them all threaded, it's going to skew the alignment of the part, so you won't be able to get the other screws in. So there we go. I'm putting these in loosely, just getting them threaded. And now that they're all threaded, I'm just going to go ahead and tighten them all the way down. Again, just do it till they're snug. These you don't want to over torque. You just want to get them snug. The rack here is rated for just 15 pounds. It's not made for passengers. So if you like your kids, don't put them on that. Where did I put my 5mm? Right over here. If you do want to have your children ride on the back of the bike, it's best that you go ahead and get a child seat. We like the toe peak. It seems to fit most of our bikes really well. Use some caution if you're buying a child seat online, because every bike geometry is different, and they may or may not be compatible with the bike seat that you're looking for. A lot of times the best option is to get a child seat at a bike shop where they can put it on, test it. If it works, that's awesome. If it doesn't, then you'd know. For this, we need a 9mm wrench and a screwdriver. So what we'll do, this is much easier in a bike stand. However, very few people have a bike stand at home. But the point is that in order to do this operation, we'll need to be picking the rear wheel up. It's often best if it's completely off of the ground all the time, but I'll show you how to do it without that because you do need to be pedaling to actually shift. However, we can shift a few gears at a time, turn the pedals to get it down. The first step is to turn the shifter into 7th gear. So I'll turn it a few clicks here, turn the pedals, a few more clicks, more pedaling all the way to 7th gear, and then pedal, brake. Now the shifter itself is in 7th gear. As expected, the gear is also in 7th, okay? Sometimes it may not. It may go into 6th, or it may seem like it's making a little bit of noise, in which case we can adjust it. This one seems great, but we'll go ahead and run through the sequence anyway, show you how it's done. We put the kickstand down. Remember, I have the shifter in 7th gear. The very next step, it's very important, is that we are going to loosen the cable. With our 9mm, go ahead down to the pinch nut. Loosen that. That was about 1.5 turns, just enough so that the cable, I'm going to go a little bit more, maybe 2 turns total. So the cable is not attached to the derailleur anymore. And we're going to turn the high limit screw. It's marked by an H. It's also the most forward screw here. We want the pulleys on the derailleur, which are the little tiny gear wheels, to line up with that 7th gear, which is the smallest gear. I'm going to turn that in. It looks like it could go in just a touch. It's a little harder to gauge by sight, but it can be done. In a shop, we typically do it by listening to it. We'll turn the pedals while we're turning that screw and see if it starts to engage the 6th gear, back it off a little bit. We also have a really nice video on that. It's pretty helpful. This is an adjustment that can be done in a bike stand, can be done in about 45 seconds. Here it'll take us maybe about 5 minutes. Okay, so now that we have the derailleur lined up with the 7th gear, the small one, and the cable is reattached, now let's go ahead and test it. And what we'll do is we'll go ahead and take the kickstand up. We'll go 1 click from 7 to 6, 7 to 6 on the shifter, and then we'll turn the pedals and see if it does indeed shift into 6th. It's rattling a lot. It's rattling a lot, but it's not going into 6th. That's usually what we experience when we go ahead and do a gear adjustment. That's expected. So we'll go ahead and add some more tension to the cable. There's a plastic adjustment barrel adjuster knob right here. Go ahead and turn that in the counterclockwise direction. I would say about 2 full turns. You'll see a little little silver cylinder start to emerge out. That means that it's putting more tension on the cable. Let's go ahead and turn the gears now and see if it pops into 6th. There it goes. It went right into 6th as expected. So now we'll go just to 5. We'll index right up to 5 and then see if it goes. It went into 5th. We'll go into 4th. Just 1 at a time. There it goes. 3. And we go 1 at a time because you may need to apply a little bit more attention or maybe back it off a little bit. As you go through the gears, you'll find out. Now we're in 2. Goes into 2 and then 1. Just like that. It's in 1st gear now, so we've adjusted that perfectly. There's also a low limit adjustment screw. You usually don't need to use that. That will determine if it's in a little bit too far, then the chain will not be able to get into 1st gear. If it's out too far, the chain may possibly go off of 1st gear into the wheel. Usually you don't need to worry about that low limit screw.